Can you believe it? It's now been 3 years since that ridiculous FBI raid on Mar-A-Lago, where the FBI showed up with long guns and tactical gear to raid the home of a former, now current, president of the United States. Rights be damned. They just out the window. Well, the lawyer that was called immediately is Christina Bobb. She showed up, and what she had to say and what she saw is all outlined in a new book she's got. I spoke with her a couple of days ago about this third anniversary, about what really went down that day, and an awful lot more. Then later, I'm going to have Harmeet Dhillon, who's the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights under Pam Bondi in this DOJ today. We talk about all things that are happening as far as lawfare, going after lawbreakers, what's happening in Texas, and more. This is Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags, with Christina Bobb and Harmeet Dhillon.
The goal was to get rid of him. They did not want him to oppose their political power. They wanted to clean up the mess that they had not been able to clean up in his first term. And they wanted to hide the fact that they have been abusing our government, abusing our intel community for the better part of a decade, likely longer.
As the attorney, you show up and say what?
Well, I won't say it on your show because it wasn't exactly nice. But,
be careful. This is on broadcast. Yeah.
It was colorful. Yeah, it was a colorful exchange at first. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. I mean, it's all connected. So it's not just who initiated the raid. It's who initiated the raid, for what purpose, who were they trying to cover up, who knew about it.
This is Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags.
It's all coming back to get him. It's all coming back to bite him. We said it was going to. We knew that the Mar-A-Lago raid was not legal. We knew that that was absolutely lawfare, and it was an attempt to try to stop Donald Trump from running for president again and winning again. Well, one of his lawyers at the time was Christina Bobb. She's an attorney. She's an author. The new book is called Defiant, Inside the Mar-A-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. Christina, how you doing? Good to see you.
Joe, it is so good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. You and I talked since that raid happened, and I just want to make sure that I get the time frame right. You weren't there when it happened, but you were called immediately, or were you there?
I was not there when they showed up, but once they showed up, I was called and asked to get down there. So I was, I don't know, probably within an hour there after the FBI arrived.
So you're there, and you're there representing the former president. You're there knowing that every document he has, he's allowed to have. And I just want to set the stage. If I get anything wrong, make sure you tell me. From January 20th of 2017 to January 20th of 2021, the president gets to have all of his records, every single piece of paper, every meeting, every recording, everything. He has the right to classify or declassify, and he certainly has the right to take it, doesn't he?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's the president and only the president that gets to decide what he keeps and what he takes with him after he leaves the White House. In fact, the only court case to have decided this, Judicial Watch versus NARA, was decided back in 2012 when Judicial Watch was trying to get the Clinton sock drawer case, right, those records. And it was an Obama judge who ruled on it, and she's Amy Berman Jackson, and she specifically ruled that not even, I'm quoting, not even the archivist can tell the president what he can and cannot take, which means NARA, who started this whole thing in the first place, was not allowed to tell him what he needed to return and what he was allowed to keep. So the whole thing was for naught. There was not a valid reason to even open the investigation in the first place.
So when you get there after getting the call, do you immediately ask, what are you doing here? Where's your warrant? What are you looking for? Why are you doing this? And we know that they went through Melania's, dresser drawers and her clothing, and they went through everybody. And what they did was illegal on its face. So what do you, as the attorney, you show up and say what?
Well, I won't say it on your show because it wasn't exactly nice. But,
be careful. This is on broadcast. Yeah.
It was colorful. Yeah, it was a colorful exchange at first, but it's all in the book. If you want to know the exact exchange.
Yeah, I do.
But, yeah. I mean, I was angry. I was demanding the warrant. They didn't want to give me the warrant. We got into a little bit of a heated exchange over whether they had to show me the warrant or not. To me, the most disturbing part of it is the 2 months prior to the raid, because by the time they get to the raid, they've already lied to a magistrate by failing to tell him everything about what they had done previously and how cooperative that the Trump team had been. And they lied to a magistrate who himself acknowledged he was conflicted out just weeks before he recused himself from the Trump v. Clinton case because he said he had a conflict. Right. Yes. And so they went to a conflicted judge and lied to the judge in order to obtain this crappy little warrant that they got that they never should have had in the first place. They never should have opened the grand jury. They never should have been authorized into Mar-a-Lago in the first place. And to me, the lead up is so much worse. I mean, by the time you get to the raid, everything's imploded, right? Like
Yes.
they have just abolished the Fourth Amendment. But it's the lead up of how cooperative I had been. President Trump's defense counsel had been extraordinarily cooperative and collegial. And President Trump himself had invited them, to have discussion with him. And he was like, yeah, you can see whatever you want. Would you like a tour of Mar-a-Lago? Like he was so cordial, and they lied about all of it. They didn't care. The whole thing was a farce, and they raided the place. I mean,
let me stop you there, because that's just, it's earth-shattering, and it wasn't at the time because the left controlled every bit of the narrative. I was so glad that you came on my show very soon thereafter. You were everywhere soon thereafter. You were saying what you could say. You could say more now, but you couldn't say it all right then. But let's make sure that we set the stage right. What you just said, I remember all of that, and I want you to fill in the empty spaces if you don't mind. NARA and the president, or the president's team, were already talking. The National Archives and the president's team were talking. National Archives thought he took some stuff that he shouldn't have, and we've already made it very clear, he could have taken anything he wanted. But to cooperate with them, he was like, all right, what do you want? I'll give you back whatever the stuff is that you want. I mean, he wasn't saying you can't have it. He had it behind lock and key. The FBI at one point, I thought you told me, said, hey, can you put another lock on that? And he said, sure, I'll put another lock on it. Everything they wanted, he did. Then they, for some reason, still raided the place with long guns and tactical gear on. Can you tell me, were you completely stunned? Was the president completely stunned? Because, as you said, you're already negotiating. Did I get anything wrong in the lead up to it? He was gonna give them back what they wanted, but he didn't have to.
Right. He didn't have to. He was just trying to be cooperative. Yeah. And he didn't even have to do that. He could have told them to, go do something to themselves.
Yes.
And he would have been well within his rights to do that.
Right.
And they chose to raid the place. But I think it's really, really important to point out that I think a lot of people forget the original grand jury for this case was in Washington, D.C. It was not a Florida case originally. They were hoping to get something from this raid that they could link to Donald Trump that was similar to Hillary Clinton's email scandal. They wanted to create an espionage type scandal that Hillary Clinton had in order to bring some type of espionage type charges against him in Washington, D.C. The whole grand jury, when I was subpoenaed and when I was forced to testify, I had to go to Washington, D.C. Well, here now, to Washington, D.C. to testify. They wanted to bring this case in Washington, D.C., and they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing, that they couldn't get an indictment in Washington, D.C. I mean, we all know the saying, you can indict a ham sandwich. I know. Yes. I've been indicted. I've been arrested. I've been through the whole thing.
It's crazy.
And they could not get that in Washington, D.C. So they had to close that grand jury, move it to Florida, and create this stupid little obstruction of justice charge that's usually, tacked on to a host of real charges in the case. But because they didn't have real charges, they had to rely just on this obstruction of justice charge.
I pay very close attention, and I thought I paid close attention to this case. By the way, it's Christina Bobb. Go to Christina, CHRISTINA, BOBB.com, and go get her book called Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. I didn't know they convened a grand jury in Washington. I know why they would have done that, because they want to say the crime committed of taking classified or top secret documents happened in Washington, when, again, you and I know if the president says, hey, take those documents, those boxes, and send them to Mar-a-Lago, that in and of itself declassifies them because he's the president and he's allowed to. But they tried to say that he committed some high crime in D.C. by taking them. That's where they started, and they couldn't get that done?
Not just by taking, and I leave it to Kash Patel and Pam Bondi to kind of expose all of this with this new grand jury. So I don't want to put too much on them, because we got to figure out where the evidence is going.
Gotcha.
But yes, they wanted to do something like that. The original grand jury, before the raid, before anything, they convened a grand jury in Washington, D.C. The whole thing was supposed to happen in Washington, D.C., which is partially why I would argue that the Trump DOJ now has jurisdiction in Florida, because I think that original grand jury lends itself to the argument that this was all part of the original conspiracy. I mean, they went from, the 2016 Russia fake intel that Tulsi Gabbard has just released, to the Russia hoax, to the Mueller report, to the Ukraine hoax, to January 6th, to Mar-a-Lago. It's all the same. It's all Washington, D.C. It's all the same. To Mar-a-Lago. And then, that didn't end until after Donald Trump was elected. I mean, 6 months ago. And who knows if it's even ended now? Who knows what they're planning? So there's no statute of limitations issue. The raid on Mar-a-Lago, and coupled with the fact that the grand jury was in Washington, D.C., I think clearly establishes that this was all part of the same conspiracy to try to get Donald Trump, which means the Trump DOJ is not going to have a hard time establishing jurisdiction in Florida. Clearly, I mean, if they've convened a grand jury in Florida, they have jurisdiction.
No, I think it's amazing because what they've done is now going to come back and bite them again. It's Christina Bobb. Go get Defiant inside the Mar-a-Lago raid and the left's ongoing lawfare. So what do you think the goal was that day? And I can't wait to read your book. Is it out now, by the way? Because I don't have it.
It's available September 9th.
Okay. So as soon as it comes out, I'm going to get it.
No, it's not out yet. But yeah, okay. You'll get it.
Okay.
But you can pre-order it now.
Oh, good. Go pre-order right now. You can get it on Amazon, at your website, everywhere?
Yeah, wherever books are sold. If you pre-order it now, you will have it on September 9th.
Beautiful.
So, all right, this is one I think every American needs to read, because you need to know the truth. You need to know what actually happened and how all this transpired, and why what the Trump DOJ is doing right now is so vitally important to correcting the wrongs in our country.
I love that you're doing this because, again, you and I have been friends a long time, and every time you come on, you're like, I really wish I could tell you, but I can't. Now you can because it's so right. And I'm like, come on, Christina. But
I know.
But now you can, which is great.
It's funny because I've been wanting to tell the story, but I haven't been able to because there's been ongoing criminal cases and investigations, and so I just wasn't allowed to. And so right after President Trump got into office, I met with him in his Oval Office. And I said, sir, I'd like to put this information out now that the case is closed. I know it's kind of old news, but can I put it out just so that people will know the truth? And he was like, yeah, sure. He did the forward for it, which I'm excited about. So you get a personal note from President Trump.
Love it.
So I put it out. And then before it's even out, it's not even on shelves yet, this whole grand jury in Florida breaks, the intel thing breaks. None of us knew it at the time. And so it's timely, and we had no idea. So it's working out well.
What do you think the goal was? Because I'll throw out some options. You tell me if they're all right or if they're all wrong. I think they were looking to get the Crossfire Hurricane stuff that had just been declassified before Trump left office. I think they were trying to get that. I also think they were trying to scare him into not running in 2024. I think that was going on. And I think they really were hoping they could indict him and lock him up. Was it all three of those things? Am I right or wrong about those things?
You are 100% right about all three of those things. Yes. The goal was to get rid of him. They did not want him to oppose their political power. They wanted to clean up the mess that they had not been able to clean up in his first term. And they wanted to hide the fact that they have been abusing our government, abusing our intel community for the better part of a decade, likely longer, against the American people in order for them to use their power, probably worldwide. Who knows what the heck they were doing? We'll find out. But yes, it was all of that.
Is it illegal what the FBI did that day when they took papers and they staged top secret over here by a toilet, and there's a classified thing over here? They staged the whole thing, took a bunch of pictures. They were so afraid of him having the stuff, yet they somehow leaked a bunch of pictures to CNN and the fake news media. Is that illegal to do that, what they did with that evidence?
It's completely illegal. It's a violation of President Trump's privacy rights, because there are privacy rights that when you're the subject of a criminal investigation, the government can't be publishing what you're subject to. So that's a very simple one. It's also, violation of protocol. If we want to get really technical, the classified cover sheets themselves technically are classified. You're not allowed to show them. Wow. And so the fact that they took pictures and put them, I mean, it's one of those, it doesn't really matter because it's not like the material was, sensitive material, but the cover sheets themselves technically are classified, and you're not supposed to be putting them on the internet.
And they did immediately, just to say, look, here's why we had to do it. He had all this stuff. It's unbelievable. It is the author and also attorney, Christina Bobb. Go and get the book called Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. It's going to be available on September 9th, but go pre-order it right now. You're going to get all sorts of insight. So who's on the hook here? Go ahead.
Yeah, if I want to go back to that classified cover sheet thing, I saw them carry those into Mar-a-Lago. So that picture of the cover sheets that they took, they brought those cover sheets into Mar-a-Lago with them.
They already had a plan then. They had a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it sure looks like it. I can't say for certain that was their intent, what they did, but those documents were not on the floor in Mar-a-Lago when they got there. That's for sure.
Forget so reasonable doubt. A preponderance of the evidence says they had a plan. Come on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just so dumb. The question is, though, who's on the hook? Is it Merrick Garland? Is it Joe Biden? Is it Kamala Harris? Who's literally on the hook for this, what I assume is wrongdoing, what you are asserting is wrongdoing? Who's in trouble?
I think there's a lot of people in trouble. Merrick Garland took responsibility for the raid 4 days later, 3 days later, whatever it was, which in and of itself was interesting to me because they were all going, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. And finally, Merrick Garland took responsibility for it. So he, I think, has some culpability. And then Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. I mean, it's all connected. So it's not just who initiated the raid. It's who initiated the raid, for what purpose, who were they trying to cover up, who knew about it. Yeah. So who knew what and when did they know it? The classic question. And hopefully Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are going to tell us sometime pretty soon.
It would be great. Christina Bobb, go and get her book. By the way, go to the website, ChristinaBobb.com. Follow her everywhere. She's on television, great commentator, incredible lawyer, and also a great author. Oh, I'll find out in September when I read the book. Go and get this now and pre-order Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. I have to know, in this wide shot, is that your mugshot behind your left shoulder?
It is, yes. And I'm still, that's my mugshot. So I was indicted in Arizona. The indictment has been thrown out, but they have not closed the case. The Arizona Attorney General is still trying to figure out how to prosecute us for no crimes that didn't occur. It's kind of a weird situation, but still open. So yeah,
there you go. I just wondered if that's what that was. I'm like, she's not going to show that unless that's meaningful. Obviously, that's the mugshot. I think Abe Hamadeh should be the Attorney General of Arizona. I'm not really sure how this Attorney General became the Attorney General, but my hope is that now that they're cleaning up Maricopa, they're cleaning up Maricopa County. Hopefully, the votes are actually going to count there now. That state is messed up from top to bottom. So the case isn't closed, but the indictment's been thrown out. How does that work? You could just keep it open as long as you want?
Yeah, the Attorney General requested a stay. So the judge threw out our indictment, and normally they've got 2 weeks to reopen the grand jury. They have not reopened the grand jury, but they requested the judge stay the case, meaning please don't close it. Give us time to appeal or do whatever the heck they want to do. And the judge granted their stay. So we're just lingering and waiting forever right now. But
Christina, it'll disappear. These people are nuts.
They're insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And it's so important that people understand when Donald Trump says, they're not after me, they're after you, I'm just in the way, he means it. And he's right. It's not just a nice saying. They came for me. They came for Rudy. They came for Mark Meadows. They came for Mike Roman. They came for about 60 of us are still fighting prosecution today. So spare me your liberal tears when they're like, oh, Donald Trump shouldn't be opening an investigation into his political opponents down in Florida. And they all cry and say, don't abuse the justice system. Okay, if you don't want to be prosecuted, then drop the charges against us. But they're counting on people not knowing that those of us who are not Donald Trump, who are still being prosecuted, we don't have the media platform that Donald Trump does. We don't have the voice or the reach. And so they just hope that nobody knows. But it's happening now already.
Well, what blows my mind is that they're not smart enough to do exactly what you just said. If they dropped all these cases and said, hey, look, we dropped all the so-called lawfare, you guys shouldn't do it either. They don't even have that in their back pocket. They're not smart enough to drop the cases. Letitia James still thinks she's right. Alvin Bragg still thinks he's right. Or the people paying them still think that they're right. They're not smart enough to drop the cases. So when you come out on top, when Trump comes out on top, when he becomes the president again, when the indictments go away, they look to be as ridiculous as they are. Let me ask you one question. I remember when Donald Trump won in 2016, and somebody asked him immediately that night, are you going to go after President Clinton and Hillary Clinton now? And he said, nah, let's leave them alone. I think we should just leave them alone. Let them be citizens now. That's over.
Let the nation heal.
Right.
That's what he said. He said, let the nation heal.
He thought that it was like a tennis match. Okay, Trump wins. Let's go have a beer. That's not who these people are. These people are nuts. And they went at 91 indictments. His life was turned upside down and he still somehow won. How does that guy win in 2024 after all he went through?
Because the American people saw it and they saw how crazy they are. And he's not going to make that mistake again. That's why they've opened a grand jury, because he knows if he doesn't cut the head off of the abuses of our justice system now,
Right.
it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And so that's what he's doing. He's allowing Pam Bondi to go after the people who started the abuse of our justice system. And I hope they get him.
I think everybody's got to find out what happened in Mar-A-Lago that day. Get defiant inside the Mar-A-Lago raid and the left's ongoing lawfare. It's Christina Bobb. Go to her website, ChristinaBobb.com, or go where you buy great books. Let's talk about Russiagate a second. He lets her off the hook. We know Comey lied to the FISA court over and over again. We know that they were surveilling Trump Tower and lied about why they were doing it with Carter Page. They were surveilling Trump. We know that they made up this dossier. It was bought and paid for by the DNC and Hillary Clinton. We know that that Obama, from the 7th to the 9th of December in 2016, changed the story by 180 degrees and started leaking that Trump was somehow colluding with Russia. What's going to happen here? I know that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Comey and Brennan and Clapper are all being subpoenaed. Could Obama be in trouble? Is he going to claim presidential immunity now because Trump made that case go to the Supreme Court? What's likely to happen with that, do you think?
I don't think Barack Obama has absolute immunity. I mean, we saw that in President Trump's case. There is some level of immunity for presidential decisions that you're making. But the interesting thing about the Trump case going to the Supreme Court was the decisions that Donald Trump was making was also after the election was over, which is the same time frame that we're looking at for Barack Obama. So we don't need another opinion from the Supreme Court about what the immunity is. It is not absolute immunity. If it had been absolute immunity, after that ruling came out, Jack Smith would have had to dismiss his entire cases, but he didn't. And so I think that's what we'll see with Barack Obama. Barack Obama doesn't have absolute immunity. And certainly if he's trying to obstruct the peaceful transition of power, remember that phrase that they were using in 2020? If he was trying to prevent a peaceful transition of power to the next administration, that's absolutely not part of his lawful presidential duties. So I don't think it's covered by immunity. I don't think he has immunity for this.
Well, he's going to say it was an official act to call a meeting, but what you did in that meeting certainly isn't covered by immunity.
Correct.
I was talking to Mike Davis the other day, and from Article 3 Project. I'm sure you know Mike. Mike's great.
Yeah, he's great. I love Mike.
Yeah, I had him on, and he said it's probably not treason, probably not sedition, but it certainly is a restriction of the rights of the president who was duly elected to do his job. For 2 years, President Trump couldn't do what he wanted to do. He was still unbelievably successful before the pandemic hits, but he was successful while the Mueller investigation was going on for millions of dollars. While Durham was doing his thing, while the left kept on lying about him, while Adam Schiff said he had absolute evidence of Russia collusion, which of course he didn't have. So what's likely to happen there? Do you think the charge would be something about restriction of rights? Do you think it is treason or sedition?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Mike. I think he's fantastic. I think there's probably a handful of different things that they could bring if they want to go for seditious conspiracy or, something along those lines.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what they'll bring, but the fact that they have a grand jury open lets me know that they have an idea of what they're going to bring. So, I have no doubt that it will be significant and serious. But I'll defer to DOJ on that one.
Christina, can a guy like Schiff be on the hook because he lied with such ease for so long? But he lied in his official capacity as a U.S. representative at the time, as the leader of the Intel Committee, as he was doing these meetings in SCIFs and not allowing people even to bring cell phones in. This guy went on and on and on about how he had the evidence. He's got him locked down. Trump is a Russian agent. Is there not anything to call him on the carpet in his official capacity? Can he lie?
Well, unfortunately, you can lie in certain circumstances as a member of Congress because he's protected by the speech and debate clause. So that makes it harder to go after members of Congress because anything that they're doing that's in their official capacity as a member of Congress, he has absolute immunity under the speech and debate clause.
Wow.
Yes, it's very frustrating. That doesn't give him license to go on national television and lie, things that are not necessarily part of his official duties. So he's not completely out of the woods, but it is much harder to get members of Congress, House or Senate because of that.
Can Trump go after him civilly? For defamation? You called me a Russian spy. You called me a Russian agent. I mean, could there be something there? Or this guy has absolutely, he can say anything he wants, anytime he wants, because he's covered by that clause?
I mean, the speech and debate clause is pretty extensive. So I haven't personally taken a case where you go after someone. So, I don't know, but I think it's pretty extensive.
Let me ask you one last question, because I just love spending time with you. You got to do this again very soon. Promise me you will.
Yes, please.
Come back on the show soon.
Yes, yes,
Defiant, the Mar-a-Lago raid, and the left's ongoing lawfare is the book. Go and get it from Christina Bobb. Last question's got to be about the auto pen. And it's stupid as it is, it still is very serious. I mean, it's really stupid. But we know that he only signed the one pardon for his son. We know that was by his hand. We don't know that he had any idea about everybody from Fauci to Schiff to the J6 committee to everybody else getting pardoned as well. We don't even know if he knew that. The executive orders, that can be undone by the next president, which this president has done. But when it comes to pardoning somebody and basically saying you can't prosecute somebody for the past 10 years and 11 months of wrongdoing that he's done. Christina, isn't there something, can we do something about that? This can't be legal.
Yeah, no, you challenge it. I would love to see them prosecute Liz Cheney in Wyoming and challenge her pardon. I mean, that's the way, they can get on social media or say, oh, those pardons aren't valid,
Right.
But the only way to determine if they're valid or not is to try it, right? Is you have to prosecute somebody.
What a good point. Yes, try it. Challenge it.
So if they try and prosecute Liz Cheney in Wyoming and they get before a Wyoming judge and they say, hey, she can't prove that she got a lawful pardon, then we're working with something there. But the only way try it.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but the thing that jumps out at me when you say that is they put out a statement by Biden who said, I knew everybody I pardoned. I knew everything I was doing. Now, we don't even know that he put out the statement. So how do you do that? Do you have to get somebody who was on the inside to crack and say, all right, we didn't tell him, we just did it? I mean, is that what it's going to take? How do you prove it otherwise?
Yeah, that makes it a lot better. I know that there have been some testimony before the House and the Senate to that degree. So if you can get sworn testimony saying, it was the chief of staff that was running the auto pen, not Joe Biden, that helps. So yeah, the more evidence you have that the pardon is invalid, the better.
I hear you.
It's up to the judge. It's literally a judgment.
I mean, we believe in the absolute power of the pardon. I get that. I never thought we'd see preemptive pardons like this, which is unbelievable. And I guess they always refer back to, they did it with Nixon because Nixon wasn't really impeached. He was going to be, and then he got the full pardon. This is what they're leaning on. Well, Richard Nixon got it, so Biden can pardon his entire damn family. Christina, there's got to be a limitation, but I'm guessing the way it's written in the Constitution, there is no limitation to pardoning.
Yeah, well, Republicans love to scream about it. And we see, a lot of elected official Republicans crying about it, but very few of them actually do anything about it. So
Truth.
Challenge it. Challenge the pardon.
I'm with you. That's exactly what should happen. Defiant inside the Mar-a-Lago raid and the left's ongoing lawfare. It's Christina Bobb. Go and pre-order it right now. It's out September 9th. We really appreciate you taking the time. Follow her on X, Christina_Bobb, and it's B-O-B-B is her last name. Thank God you wrote this book. I've been dying for more information about what happened with Mar-a-Lago. I knew that it was unbelievable lawfare, and I knew that it was unbelievably illegal. And I hope that there's hell to pay. I said last question. Let me just ask you this because it's in the book. I'm sure it's in the book. Can individual agents be held accountable, or are they just following orders?
You're right. It is in the book. I do discuss that. I think they can be. It depends on how much they knew, what they knew, and when they knew it. But yeah, if there's some agents, maybe more senior agents that had a more direct role, they could be more culpable than those that were just, quote unquote, following orders. But I don't think the order to raid Mar-a-Lago, I don't believe that was a lawful order, despite the fact that they had a warrant. I don't think it was legal. So,
of course not, because he didn't have anything illegal. What did they? Oh, we got him on what? He was allowed to have those because of the sock drawer. I'll explain the sock drawer very quickly. Bill Clinton was having conversations with world leaders. He was recording them, and then he kept the recordings and put them in his sock drawer. And they said, well, it was something that happened in his official duty as the president, and he owns all of that over the 4 years or 8 years that he was in. And that's sort of the precedent for it, right?
Yeah, and Judicial Watch had sued to try to get access to that because they were saying, hey, that should be publicly available.
Right.
And that's when the judge said, nope, it's the president and only the president who gets to decide what's available to the public and what's not, what he gets to take and what he doesn't. And apparently that only applies to Democrats because they raided Mar-a-Lago over it.
Christine, I'm so glad that we're on the same side. I'd be afraid to go up against you in a debate, to be honest with you. I just love that you know all this stuff. I love that you've written this book, Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. Go get it right now as a pre-order. You'll get it actually on September 9th if you order it right now. Thanks a million for coming on. Let's do it again soon, my friend. All right, can we do that?
Yes. Thanks, Joe.
When I heard this young lady got the job, I thought we are really on the right track in this country. It is Harmeet Dhillon. You know her from Fox. You know her from being on my show. You know her better for being the Assistant Attorney General, DOJ Civil Rights Division. Harmeet, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
Do I call you the AAG? I mean, or do I just call you Harmeet? I'm not sure what, because we've been friends a while.
Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you can call me Harmeet.
Just want to make sure. I don't want the DOJ after me.
I'm from California. We're pretty relaxed.
That's right. So. Exactly right. And by the way, those watching and listening know that you gave us great insight into then Vice President Kamala Harris's history. And I think that actually helped to make sure we got the right result in November. I don't want to talk about that, though. I want to talk about what's happening in Texas. You know that I'm based in San Antonio. We've got stations around the country, 170 stations, but I've got a lot of stations here in Texas, and the entire country is really, really focused on what's going on. The argument is we left Texas, these legislators who left, to preserve democracy, which is the dumbest thing I've heard. And of course, I had Governor Abbott on 2 days ago live on the program, and he said, no, that's not what's going on at all. We're literally going to add 5 new districts. 4 of them are going to be Hispanic districts by population. So, Harmeet, if we can make it just in layman's terms completely, this coalition district thing that was going on has been thrown out, and that gave Texas this opportunity. And I believe the opportunity came from a lawsuit by the left to begin with. So can we let's just make it simple. What's going on in Texas?
So what's going on in Texas historically, the left has used the Voting Rights Act, a very important law that has protected minorities from discrimination, arising back, from the civil rights era, where there were poll taxes and other artificial barriers to mainly African Americans being able to vote. Voting Rights Act got rid of all of that. It policed certain places that had been doing that. And it's been an ongoing battle to define what that law means. And
right.
Over the years, what it has evolved to mean is that certain groups, NAACP and some other groups, have repeatedly sued states and tried to force these states to draw protected minority districts. And so as that has become harder, places like Texas have minorities who are Republican.
Yes.
And so, the lines are a little fuzzy. So the line drawing has resorted to trying to keep these safe liberal districts, if you will, generally speaking, by using coalitions. And so using more than one minority group, okay, or saying that in the event of a minority in a district, there's usually a crossover vote of white voters to support that minority. It's really convoluted, but the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, in which Texas resides, knocked down those so-called coalition districts I just described in a opinion last year. Now, the current lines in Texas were drawn when coalition districts had not been struck down,
right,
but now they're illegal in Texas. And so I wrote a letter last month to Texas informing them that at least 4 of their districts were out of compliance with the Voting Rights Act. If they didn't fix it, the United States Department of Justice might have to take action, probably would take action. But to their credit, Texas stepped up, called a special session of the legislature, and that's when the drama started. And these legislators decided they'd rather go walkabout anywhere but Texas and do their jobs. And then they added in grandstanding, and they're accepting hotel rooms, and one would argue transportation and other emoluments that are illegal under Texas law for legislators to accept to not do their jobs. And so that is Texas law drama mainly, but the backdrop is trying to fix a violation of federal voting rights laws.
You spelled that out so incredibly, and I appreciate you doing that. Is the Voting Rights Act of 1965 still applicable? It's 60 years later. They put that in place when most of these states were run by Democrats or Dixiecrats. They were very, very racist states. They're not anymore. Texas is a majority-minority state, for goodness sakes. There are fewer whites here than there are everybody else, which I'm fine with. I live here. So does it still apply? Should we revisit the Voting Rights Act of 1965?
No, look, the Voting Rights Act is a great law, and there could definitely be circumstances in which a state discriminates against people. What the beautiful thing about 2025 today, as I'm constantly going through dismantling discrimination, we have systematic discrimination in our country against majority people,
right,
and that's illegal. The Supreme Court has told us that's illegal. There are not different standards that apply for whites claiming discrimination than for blacks or for Latinos. That's beautiful. That's the American way. Nobody should be discriminated against because of their race. That's un-American. So I could see circumstances in which, there may be white plaintiffs who need protection in these circumstances.
Right.
What is not the case any longer is this idea that we need to protect and draw minority districts, and that those districts will represent a particular political viewpoint. That's the fallacy here. And Texas is the exact proper example for that, because you have minorities representing Texans who are Republicans. So the concept that you have to draw these political subdivisions and they're going to be Democrats representing minorities, that's not true anymore in America. That's really outdated. So that concept is wrong. But as Supreme Court Justice Thomas very eloquently said in a recent dissent, where the Supreme Court kicked the can down the road, and this term just ended on an important case that would have revisited the interpretation of the Voting Rights Act.
Right.
He said, look, the way the law has evolved, it's crazy. You have equal protection required under the 13th Amendment, which is good. And then you have the Voting Rights Act, which seems to either require or allow racial gerrymandering, which is entirely inconsistent with the 13th Amendment.
Right.
And so the Supreme Court has a case coming up involving a Louisiana district that's 250 miles long, one of these so-called majority minority districts. Yes. I mean, that legislator's on the road all day long just to visit his constituents, and some of the sections of it are super narrow, like a lot of these weirdo gerrymandered districts. And the court is going to consider whether that is appropriate and consistent with the Constitution anymore. That decision is, if they reach that point, which I hope they do, is going to completely upend interpretation of the Voting Rights Act. It may get rid of racial gerrymandered districts throughout the United States, which means my old state of California and states like New York and Illinois and all these other states are going to have to redraw their lines. And there are a lot of red states that have these gerrymandered districts too, because courts told them they had to do that after someone sued.
It's Assistant Attorney General of the DOJ Civil Rights Division, Harmeet Dhillon. Harmeet, thank you. Appreciate you coming. I just want to finish up on this. You mentioned Illinois. There's a district there that looks like an anaconda. It just goes all the way through the state just to make sure it's Democrat. Then you've got Massachusetts, where Maura Healey, the governor, was just asked by somebody in the media yesterday, are you thinking about redrawing lines here? Harmeet, there are 0 Republican representatives from Massachusetts.
Exactly.
It's a 35 to 40% Republican state, but there's 0 representation whatsoever. California can't redraw either. So going by the way you spelled it out in the beginning, the reason why this is happening now is because they got rid of coalition districts. I'm guessing there aren't those kind of districts in California or Illinois or Massachusetts or New York. They just gerrymandered their faces off, but they weren't covered by this Voting Rights Act of 1965, which I think unduly punished southern states that used to be these southern slave states. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I don't think that it would apply to them. It's almost as if them, like J.B. Pritzker accepting these people from Texas, he's not going to be in trouble because we're all examining. Even Stephen Colbert, held up a sign of the map of his state the other day on that failing program and said, what did you do here? So with what you just said about Justice Thomas, and this case is going to show up in the Supreme Court, might these states that ironically are saying that Texas is trying to gerrymander, they're all very gerrymandered states, Illinois with big anaconda-looking districts, and we know that 70% Republican representation out of California is a lot lower than the 40% Republican base in California. Might these states be forced to redistrict if this case goes the way Justice Thomas says it might?
Yes. I mean, if this case goes the way that Justice Thomas has hinted he'd like to see it, namely in favor of equal protection for all Americans and ending racial gerrymandering, many states are going to have to redistrict. Now, there are a few states in the country that are so small in population, they only have one member of Congress, or they're, like I was joking with a friend of mine from a state that's, one of these New England states. I'm like, do you even have any minorities in your state? You probably don't have minority districts. They're, mainly a white liberal state.
Yeah.
So those states may not be affected, but states like California that are very diverse in population and very litigated, Illinois, a lot of the states in the South, you're going to see some complete changes forced by law changes there. This DOJ is very committed to a race-blind America where we get rid of set-asides and, sort of quotas and this artificial concept that you can determine people's voting or their, capabilities by their race. This is an un-American concept to me.
If I get what you're laying down right, the coalition being thrown out, the coalition, requirement being thrown out, or the allowance of it being thrown out, that would, I think, stop Gavin Newsom from redistricting, wouldn't it? I mean, he didn't fall within that. Or Kathy Hochul. They're both saying they're going to redistrict and get 5 more Democrat seats each in each state, but it doesn't sound like they can.
There's 2 different concepts. So first of all, coalition districts are illegal under a Fifth Circuit precedent. So that governs Texas and some other states. what the Supreme Court is taking up is racial gerrymandering altogether. Like the normal form of racial gerrymandering has a single race benefiting from a gerrymandered district. So you don't have to have a coalition district to have a gerrymander. You can have a gerrymander with a single group that is benefiting from it. States engage in political redistricting as well. So there's a lot of brute force and I would call even political violence that goes on to protect people's districts in their states. And so California has a so-called independent redistricting commission that was put into place many years ago by a constitutional amendment that was, actually a wealthy Republican donor thought that it would produce better results than the political gerrymandering or political line drawing. I don't think that's proved to be the case. I mean, I've testified before that commission and seen it in action. It's pretty political, and you can see the number of Republican districts has gone down since we've had that so-called independent redistricting commission.
Right.
But there may come a time where the evolution of the law and even the Voting Rights Act may stop some of this nakedly partisan and certainly race-based gerrymandering. And if you took that away, or you empowered majority candidates in a district to sue for equal protection, all bets are off.
Very, very interesting. I really appreciate you spelling it out. It's Harmeet Dhillon, Assistant Attorney General, DOJ, Civil Rights Division. DEI is racist. DEI, I would believe, has to be against the law in this country because racism, the mechanism of racism in government anyway, is completely against the law. I guess you can walk around and say, I hate white people if you want. Your free speech allows that. But the government can operate itself under DEI, which is selective racism, is it not? So is that on the way out? Is that gone? What's coming out of these hearings?
Well, I testified about the work that we're doing in the Civil Rights Division pursuant to the president's executive orders and the evolution of the law in a hearing in the Senate recently. And I described the many ways in which the Civil Rights Division is going after and attempting to eradicate, or as I use the analogy with my garden, pull the ivy out by the roots and get rid of it, because it really is permeating every aspect of our society. Just about every corporation has been doing affirmative action. And to be fair to them, they're doing it to avoid the government suing them over that. And they're doing it also from corporate pressure, because all these public pension boards that control the stock of so many of these public companies, they're actually driving some of this stuff. And so there's public policy that's at tension with the law in these ways. And so one by one, we're trying to force every university that's taking federal money to stop discriminating on the basis of race and gender. That is demanded by United States Supreme Court precedent, the case Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard and University of North Carolina, where the court said that there may have been times in the past where affirmative action was needed temporarily to remedy actual racial discrimination, but it's not the case today. Where it's remote in time, you can't keep doing it. And that's the case pretty much everywhere in America. We have done a great job as a country to move away from the vestiges of racism that this country has had in the past. It is the most egalitarian country in the world, based on my observation and world travels. And, I'm born in another country, and America is the best country in the world. And so we have to confront it in corporations. You have to confront it in government contractors, in education, in K through 12. And in, my goodness, Hennepin County, Minnesota, prosecutor says she's giving out sentences and pleas based on race. This is outrageous. You see prosecution decisions by some other Soros-funded prosecutors clearly based on race. You see differential punishment, differential treatment based on race or national origin. Again, these are all un-American, and we are attempting to identify all these issues and root them out.
Hennepin County is watching and listening right now. We're on live there every night, Monday through Friday, and they know it's a mess there. So what's the remedy for somebody like that specific judge? Can you bring charges? Can you somehow sanction? What do you do to stop her from doing that, or that prosecutor? What do we do to stop her from doing that?
This is a prosecutor. Her name is Mary Moriarty, and she is under investigation by my office. So I'll just leave it at that. We are investigating her office for her public statements that are racist in nature. And everyone else who's doing this or thinking about doing this, they're on notice that they cannot break the law by treating people differently and sentencing recommendations on the basis of their race. This is illegal, and un-American.
I love it. Justice.gov/CRT is the website. It's Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dhillon. Let's talk about UCLA. We also saw the pictures. We all saw the videos of Jewish students being told you can't come here, about professors being told you can't come here. Oh, you're aligned with Israel, you can't come here. They literally were shutting down a publicly funded university in Los Angeles, and they appeared to get away with it. Sounds like you're not going to let them get away with it.
We're not going to let them get away with it. You're absolutely correct. We've opened up different investigations into the UC system. UCLA is high on the list there. They receive a ton of federal funding and different grants. And, they just reached a settlement knowing that they're under investigation by the DOJ. They hastily reached a private settlement with Jewish plaintiffs who are complaining about those 2024 encampments. But their pittance of $6 million settlements is not going to satisfy the DOJ because there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are affected by this discriminatory behavior over there. So we have, I can't even talk about some of the investigations because they haven't reached public levels as yet, but there's a lot wrong in the state of California and in its education system, and UCLA is one of many of our targets in the state.
The colleges and universities in this country realize how serious you are, realize how serious AG Bondi is, realize how serious the president is, because a lot of colleges and universities are paying up big time. Would it be a matter? And again, I'm not asking specifically about UCLA. Let's say any college somewhere that did the similar thing. If they come forward and say, we'll do this, we'll change how we treat people, we'll give you millions of dollars back, we won't accept that grant. I guess I'm trying to figure out what it is that they have to do to satisfy you, who's investigating them, that they won't ever do this again.
Well, look, we're, doing what you would do as a litigation strategy. You're going after the biggest and the worst offenders, and we're reaching deals with them. And hopefully other people will begin to behave themselves without us having to go after them, because there's 6,000 universities in the United States. So I've sent letters opening up investigations into about 50 institutions of higher learning at the, at the, sort of 4-year level.
Yeah.
We've also investigated the top law schools in America and the top medical schools in America and a couple of other specialty schools, nursing schools. There are 7 investigations into the University of Virginia, for example, where I obtained my law degree. A lot of their schools have problems. And so we're hoping to make examples out of the ones who are willing to come make a deal with us. We may have to sue some of these schools to correct the wrongdoing, but ultimately, it's really pretty simple, Joe. If these schools stop discriminating against their students and their employees, they should be fine. I mean, how hard is this? The law is right there, Title VII, Title IX, Title VI. You can't use race as a proxy for anything. You can't use some of these other factors either. These false assumptions that are based on groupthink and group categorization are inconsistent with our constitutional principles and our civil rights laws. Every individual has a right to be considered for admission, for employment, for benefits on their individual basis, not on the basis of how they were born.
Yes.
And so this is how the rest of the world, backward countries, do this stuff. We shouldn't do it here in America.
Yeah, I love that you said it. It's simple. Just stop doing it, and it would fix it. It's Harmeet Dhillon. One last question. You mentioned Title IX. I'm way older than you are, but I was a kid in elementary school when Title IX came around. You probably don't remember it starting. But I asked my PE teacher, what is Title IX? What does that mean? Because I was always interested in issues. And she said, it just means that girls will get the same opportunities as boys. I had 3 sisters. I said, hey, that's great. I've got 5 daughters now. I'm like, hey, that's great. But if you take away the gender, you say anybody can be any gender they want to be and still let them participate, there's no need for Title IX. So President Trump does an EO making sure that people understand Title IX is going to be strictly followed, and Maine says, we're not going to do that. I guess Janet Mills thinks she's going to go to court against you or Pam Bondi or the president. When it comes to Title IX, am I right when I say it's not necessary if we're not going to define genders? Why even have it?
Well, you're right. I mean, they've made a mess of this whole concept. It was absolutely Title IX. Your teacher gave you a correct interpretation of Title IX. It was meant to protect girls' rights. Okay. And, you've seen an interesting schism on the left in the analysis here. You see people like J.K. Rowling and Martina Navratilova and others, sort of prominent celebrities and sports figures who are squarely on the women's rights side of this, which is namely women have a right to privacy. Women have a right to their own trophies and categories. Men are larger and have different lung capacity and muscle capacity than women. It's not fair for women to have to compete against men. At the same time, you have politicians like Nancy Pelosi came out, I think yesterday or today, saying, oh, I'm in favor of gender affirming care. Gender affirming care, I'm so sick of these euphemisms. It's sex change. It's mutilating young girls and trying to make them into boys, which is not a thing that can be done.
Right.
They're teaching this in medical schools as well. It's ridiculous. And so we just want to go back to the basic premise that they're boys and they're girls, and girls have, the need to have categories for themselves so that they can have the opportunity to have confidence, opportunities to compete for scholarships and to compete for trophies. And boys are taking that away. Literally, we're sending ourselves back in this woke Alice in in Wonderland through the looking glass. We're sending ourselves back 50 and 70 and 100 years to the time when women and girls didn't have equal opportunity. And so we're putting a stop to that. This president is putting a stop to it. We're putting a stop to it. Linda McMahon and I and our Attorney General, we're focused on this issue. And so some of these college settlements that we've been reaching include right-sizing these issues. So some of the schools we've talked to have agreed to stop allowing boys to compete in girls' sports, to allow girls to have privacy in their dormitories and their locker rooms. And, you're seeing at HHS a move towards tying the Medicare, Medicaid funding to these hospitals not performing this sex change on children.
I mean, Boston Children's came out last week or 2 weeks ago and said, yeah, we're still going to do it. We're going to keep on doing it. That's what we're doing. So, I mean, when it comes to a private hospital like that does get federal funding, do you just cut off the federal funding? Is that the leverage that you have? We'll stop giving you the funding if you keep on pushing this ridiculous mutilation of children.
Yes, I think there's a lot of bravado until they see what the bottom line is going to be. I don't think there's any major hospital in America that can survive without Medicare, Medicaid. I would like to see it.
It's wonderful to catch up with you. It's the Assistant Attorney General, DOJ Civil Rights Division, Harmeet Dhillon. Harmeet, thanks a million. I really appreciate you. Come back again soon, okay?
Thanks for having us.
You're amazing.